Taylor Elwood here with Magical Experiments. And today I thought, first of all, that I would wish all of you a happy Yule. Happy Yule, my beloved Sheena. Happy Yule. She just joined here. But I want to talk about meditation on rest, the long dark, and finding answers in the dark, really. And I also want to share, before we get out into all that last night we did a winter solstice gathering for the community. And it was a really heartwarming, lovely experience where we had I think almost like 10 people, well, about 10 people total, including the two of us, I think, it was a decent number of people. Um, we had a lot of fun. We're definitely going to be doing more of this. I think we need, those community connections are really important. And this is a huge part of the work and the play. And so we had a lot of fun celebrating the winter solstice, and I look forward to seeing what we come up with in the future around this. So, been seeing a couple of Substack notes today about rest, and I think it's been interesting because rest is one of those topics that we don't really overly associate with really anything. Oh, you need to rest, right? But rest is an important part of the creative process. It's part of how we recover from burnout. And this is the time of year where a lot of people end up getting stressed because it's the holiday season. And, people are out trying to get the perfect gift. They're getting ready to deal with family drama. They're getting ready to, cook all the food and do all the things. And it gets to be a little overwhelming sometimes. And it's ironic because the whole point of like doing a Yule feast or a feast around this time of the year, part of it is kind of like, okay, we're going into winter now. We've the harvest season is over. We've collected the bounty from the land, and now we need to stock up and save up for the winter and be prepared. And we're having a feast in part to celebrate everything, but also to fatten us up a little bit. And yet what ends up happening is that this becomes a very stressful period of time. I shared with Sheena later on. I said, like I don't really. I was talking about like how I value having quiet holidays now. I used to have holidays which weren't quiet. I would have people in my life and it would be like, like I went back when I was married and had two stepkids. It was dealing with the stepkids. It was dealing with sometimes the family drama around their father or whatever else or any of these other things. And it's kind of like now I don't have to deal with that, and I like it. I like having a quiet holiday. And I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing to spend time with family or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm finding that at least for myself, that for the most part, what I really enjoy is just a bit of quiet reflection and rest. I don't observe Christmas anymore. I haven't observed it in years, and I find that to be very satisfying. Not to observe, because honestly, I don't really identify with that holiday anyway. I'm not a Christian. Um, so it doesn't really make sense to observe it. But what I'm going to observe and what I have been observing is just kind of the darkness, because right now we are in the long dark. Yes, we've technically rounded the corner, and the the, the days are going to start getting longer, but it's going to be darker longer for at least the next 3 months or so. And there's something to be said for allowing ourselves to just relax into the dark and to rest in it and to find answers with it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do that here in a few moments. Welcome, Carrie. Glad to have you here. And if either you or Sheena have questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to drop those in. So for me right now, I look at I look at kind of like this is like a period of deep rest and reflection. And I've purposely cultivated that at this time of the year. I still do a fair amount. I mean, I write, I create, I do all the other things. But one of the things that I've built into my life overall is just more rest. I used to not do that. I used to just work and work and work and work and work and work and work all the time. And then I hit burnout. And burnout was like me being Wile E. Coyote running smack into the mountain wall. And then just laying there. At a certain point, that's what would end up happening. And burnout became harder and harder to recover from because it took up more and more energy. A few years ago, I had this very pivotal realization, and I wrote about it in my one article about the dark, but I'm going to share it here too. Where kind of was just like, I need to slow down a bit more. Welcome, Exis. Glad to have you here. Feel free to drop in comments or questions. I was like, okay, I need to slow down. And one of the things that I did to slow down is I started to purposely build some rest in each day. And building that rest into each day, building that period of just quiet time was huge. So earlier today I meditated. I've been working for a while and I can kind of feel when my brain starts to get fuzzy. Each day it gets fuzzy around between like 1 and 2 o'clock. That's like when I'm like, okay, I've hit a wall. I start to hit a wall. And in the past, what I would do is I would try to work my way through that wall. I would just try to force my way through it. Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. When I couldn't, I mean, I would still keep working, but it would be like really bad writing or things like that. I don't do that anymore. I meditate at that time. I go and I meditate and give myself like, it's like a good 20-30 minutes. And lo and behold, I feel a ton better. It feels like my entire brain has just been scrubbed out of all the things I don't need. But what I've also been doing at night is when I go to bed, I make sure that my room is as dark as it possibly can be. I've got blinds, I've got everything else, and so there's very little light coming in. And I set that up very purposely for two reasons. One is to set it up so that when I actually wake up in the morning, that I wake up at like when the light starts to actually come in from the daytime, and that's usually when I wake up. And it's just like paying attention to those natural rhythms and allowing that in. Now, not everyone can do that. I get it. But I think like when we can adhere to some type of natural rhythm, it's really important to give ourselves that. But the other reason I do it is because being in that numinous darkness just opens up the creative wellspring of the soul. And it's not about writing then. It's not about doing anything. It's actually about receiving the creativity, receiving the fullness of the dark, because the dark has a lot of answers for us. And right now we're like in this season where it's kind of like, okay, the whole point, like, the winter solstice is like, oh, to bring some light back into the world. Like it's been getting darker out and now we need to bring some light back in. And I get it. And I think it's important to honor the light. But I think it's equally important to honor the dark. The dark is our friend if we allow it to be. The dark is restfulness. It is the chance to just kind of be in the fertileness of the fertile loam of our own minds and our own being and allow that to fully soak into our being. So one of the questions that I've been asking lately when I go to sleep is, I say to the dark, I thank it. I'm like, thank you for being here and for being, for giving me this space to rest. And I'm like, if you have anything for me, if you have any messages you want to share with me or anything like that, I would welcome them. And since I started doing that practice, it's been interesting because I've had some very vivid dreams. I mean, I sometimes have vivid dreams anyway, but they've been even more vivid. And I've also gotten into some very interesting conversations with the dark itself. It's like it's just kind of come through, and it's kind of it's helped me to like work through a couple of situations where I've had like things that I've been trying to like kind of come up with a solution to. And one of my creative practices is that like when I'm trying to come up with a solution to a complex problem is I let it marinate. I'll often think about it for a bit, and then I will kind of visualize, if you will, that like I'm putting something onto the back of a stove, like a cooking pot, and I'm like leaving it there in the back of the stove to cook and marinate. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's like, okay, that complex problem can now cook in the background. I don't have to have the solution right away. And this is again something that I've changed because I've realized that if I let something rest, if I bring something and I bring bring some degree of restfulness even to like a problem, that problem will often have a better solution than if I just try to actively think through it all the time. Welcome, Erica. Glad to have you here. Again, if any of you have any questions or comments or things like that, feel free to drop those in. I love it when people interact with me on these because it just makes it more fun and engaging. So I like to marinate my problems a lot of times. And so what I've been lately doing is now I'm like marinating in the dark because I'll be like, okay, hey dark, here's what's going on with my life, or here's the thing that's kind of on my heart or on my mind. And I'll be like, if you have any messages for me or if you have anything for me that can be helpful for this, I would welcome it. Now, I'll admit, I've partially been inspired in this regards because I've been reading this book called 28 Days in the Dark by Trevor Bone. Now, Trevor is just this really amazing person. I feel fortunate to call him a mentor. I've learned a lot from him on my men's work journey, which I talk about sometimes on here. And been reading this book, and it's really been like, like he spent 28 days in the dark. Imagine that, just doing like a full 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks of just being in the dark and just being there. Like honestly, putting a month of time, a solid moon cycle. Okay, a solid moon cycle of time toward me in the dark. That's what he did. It's definitely gotten me intrigued about the idea of doing like a dark retreat. I think that if I were to do one, I would probably start out with maybe like 5 days or a week in the dark just to see how well I handled that and like build up. Because I think it's a pretty significant practice to get into the dark. Sheena asks, do you make any distinction between the dark, the void, the darkest space, or something else? Hmm. Well, that's a really interesting question. I really don't. I mean, I kind of think of the dark as the void and as the space and all those other things. I mean, it's interesting because like I in the past I've done, and I'm kind of doing it now. Um but I do it a little bit differently. In the past, each of my years I would have a themed element. That was there, and the element might be something like love. One year it was emptiness, so emptiness was the element, and in a very real sense, that was an experience of working with that sense of void or darkness. Welcome, Jack. Glad to have you here again, folks. Feel free to comment if you have any comments, questions, anything like that. But getting back to Sheena's question about making a distinction, I mean, I think it could. Some people might. One of the reasons I hesitate around making distinctions along those lines is there's this very human tendency to want to categorize everything. Like, okay, this is the dark, this is the void, this is the emptiness, this is the this is space, this is all these other things, and it's like, well, yes, we can make these distinctions, but and this is actually kind of where this is a little bit of an in joke between Sheena and I, but I'm going to share it here. One of the things I'll say sometimes is like, get rid of, strip out needless complexity, right? Well, needless complexity, I look at it, needless complexity is showing up in life where it's like, Like, for example, you go to a grocery store and you're trying to find something and you're looking and looking on the shelves. You could ask somebody for help, but you don't. That's needless complexity because you don't have to keep looking and looking and looking. You could literally just ask one of the people that works at the store and they can probably point it to you and save you X amount of time. But then there's also needless simplicity. And by that I mean, like, okay, if I categorize things and make it like, okay, this is the dark, this is the void, this is the emptiness, space, right? On the surface level, it's very convenient and useful. And on the other hand, you you have the reality that there's like this is almost too simple in a way. Experiencing the fullness of the dark, in my experience, has really come down to allowing that the dark can be many different things. She said, "But you miss all the other fun stuff in the dark then." Well, that's just it. That's where I'm not missing all the other fun stuff by not simplifying it that way, right? I'm allowing for. And this is kind of something that I've come to realize about the dark. Like, I think the reason why so many people are afraid of the dark, I mean, we have the childhood thing of, kids being afraid of the dark. But I think sometimes the reason why people are afraid of the dark is because the numinous darkness contains all the secrets that we bury in the dark, all the things that we want to hide from, right? And this is what they talk about when they talk about shadow work and things like that. And lately I've been seeing a spate of shadow work posts on Substack because that's the fancy thing to talk about right now. And I mean, I'm a shadow work facilitator, but one of the things that one of the differences in my approach to shadow work is that I actually approach my shadow and darkness from a place of curiosity. It's like, I'm not trying to fix you or solve you or do trauma work with you. I actually want to get to know you and find out what you want to share with me and then look at how we can integrate. And I look at darkness itself as an experience, as an integration process. In the Inner Alchemy of Wintering class, one of the things that I have people do is actually look at different ways that they can build the rest, the rejuvenation, the slowing down into their practice as a way of integrating in what they need to receive. Because when we live in a society that endlessly emphasizes production and productivity, it also emphasizes consumption. So it's like, okay, work, 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 and then consume, 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 and then go back. I was reading a quote today about Henry Ford and like why he ended up advocating for the 5-day work week. He's like, I don't want people to work 6 days a week. I want them to work 5 because when they work 5 days, then they have 2 days off. And that means that they're going to spend those 2 days consuming and buying and doing things. And that's going to keep them having to work longer. So he wasn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart, which, I mean, let's be honest here. None of us are surprised by this, right? But it's a really important thing to recognize that, like, in a very real sense, what we don't allow ourselves to do is to slow down and receive. So we're always consuming, we're always producing, we're always doing something, right? Well, what the dark is saying to us is like, look, there's not a lot you can do in the dark. If it's like a pitch black room or something like that, there's not, you can exercise, you can meditate, you can do some things, but at a certain point, you're going to hit a place where you're alone with your thoughts. You're alone with your being. And then you can receive that. And that's kind of the experience that I have each night. Like, I go to sleep and I don't fall asleep right away. I'm just kind of like, okay, dark, like, I'm here with you. I want to receive you. And so I end up receiving the dark and I receive the hidden treasures of the dark because the dark has all these things that are hidden. It has all the secrets that I've tried to hide from or hide away over the years. It has everything else in it. And if I'm open and curious, I can actually allow that in and embrace it and receive it. And out of that comes so much goodness. Like, the dark isn't something to be afraid of. The dark is just another experience. It's what we put into that experience is where the fear comes up. And as soon as we stop putting that much fear into it, things shift and change. Welcome, Donna. Glad to have you here. So here's a little reflection piece for you to consider for yourselves. All right, like we have just come through the solstice, and as I shared earlier, we had Sheena and I we had this really lovely solstice gathering. It was wonderful and it was beautiful. And we did some fun stuff with the light. We did some other fun things, but one of the things that also stood out to me at the end was like how that light was kind of like we could give that light as kind of like here's a resource that you can carry with you into the dark, and here's where we can still receive the dark into our lives. We have this wonderful fertile period over the next few months where the dark is longer than the light, the night is longer than the day. And I would encourage you here in the northern hemisphere, because if you're in the southern hemisphere it's the other way around, I get that, but in the northern hemisphere, what I would encourage you to do is to have a conversation with the dark. Try it for like 1 week. Have a conversation with the dark and say like, hey dark, welcome. And ask it like what it would share with you if it could share anything. And don't expect that it's automatically going to speak with, like the English language or whatever your native language is or anything like that. It may or may not. But don't go in with that expectation. Just go in with curiosity. Like, okay, if the dark does have a conversation with me, how will it come out? Maybe it comes out in my dreams. Maybe it comes out in some impressions that I have. Maybe it comes out in just the quiet stillness that I experience here in this moment where I'm just laying down or I'm sitting or whatever it is. But let's welcome the dark in because the dark is a gift. The dark brings us the gift of rest. It brings us the gift of reception and receiving. And we could all use some more rest and receiving in our lives. And if you're curious about it, one thing that I will share with you is we'll share the Inner Alchemy of Winter in class here with you. I've recently updated it. We also have a live cohort version that we do on occasion. I'm going to go ahead and share this here, and you want to check it out. I just popped it in the chat there, the link, and this is a very intentional practice that I've actually created in my life that has brought me back from the brink of permanent burnout, helped me to process and work through a lot of grief as well. Because the thing is like when we're in the dark, that's where like I said before, all the things that are hidden come up. That's where all the wounds that we hide from, the hurt, everything, all the things, that stuff comes up. It's there waiting for us. If we were to approach it with some kindness and with an attitude of restfulness, we might actually find that we could leave a lot of it in a better place within ourselves because we wouldn't be trying to fight so hard against it. And that was the biggest lesson that I had, is that there was a point a few years ago where I was in so much pain at the time. I'd gone through a lot of changes in my life and I felt like I just had to lay on the floor for a while, metaphorically. I mean, I was still working at a day job each day, doing what I had to do to pay the bills and take care of things. But I just allowed myself to just, after the job was done, just lay there, so to speak. I didn't do a lot. I read books for the most part, just reading and contemplating some things. I didn't write, I didn't create, I didn't do a lot of magic or other things. I just slowed myself down for a while. I would also work. I was also working another part-time thing. I would go and DoorDash at night. But even that, like I was DoorDashing, and a lot of times I was just kind of using it as like, yeah, I was going and picking up food, but I was also using it as an opportunity to just kind of experience what was going on within my life at the time, the hard stuff, and fully receiving that and working with it because it was like, okay, it's here, like it's not going away. And I knew that, like, and the more I was trying to make it, the more I would try to make it go away, the harder it would come in. I was like, no, I don't need to do that. I just need to lay down and rest, metaphorically. What I would tell myself sometimes Two is I'd be like, you will get through this someday. You will get through this. I don't know when, but you will get through this. But for right now, just be here with it. And that's really actually the key to handling an experience of suffering in our lives is to be like, okay, instead of trying to get away from it or trying to heal it or fix it or whatever else, be with it. And I know that's like, oh, like that sounds so simple and yet so hard. Well, it could be, but it might not be. Yes, it sucks to suffer. It sucks to be hurting. The other day, actually, I had an experience like that. I was really hurting. There was some stuff I felt really sad. There were things I was thinking about from like a few years ago, and it just kind of hit me. I don't have those days too often anymore, but once in a while I still have them. And I just allowed it to come through. I just allowed that suffering to be there. Not because I wanted to hurt, but because I knew that if I allowed myself to make space for that hurt, it wouldn't stay for too long. It would just be like, oh, okay, you made space for me. And I wasn't trying to fix it or heal it because that implied there was something wrong with feeling that hurt. And what I would share with all of you is that there is nothing wrong with feeling hurt. It's just another state of being and experience in our lives. Too many people make certain experiences in their lives something that needs to be fixed or solved. They attach a stigma to it. And so they end up punishing themselves and they actually cause more suffering that way. Resting with my grief, allowing my grief to land with me, has taught me a significant amount about how to actually welcome the lessons of grief. And it's the same thing with hurt. There are moments in your life where you are going to hurt. And that hurt, if you resist it, if you fight it, if you try to fix it and heal it, which is also just another way of fighting it, it's just going to stick around longer. Donna said, not allowing that space block chakras. Good for you. Yeah, well, yeah, it certainly does block the energetic thing. It creates those energetic blocks, right? It freezes you up. This is one of the reasons why I came up with the inner alchemy of wintering, because it was like, oh, okay, well, how do you be with the ice, the blocks in your life? How do you alchemize them? You alchemize them by being with them, by resting with them, by allowing them to slowly melt. And that is the one of the most alien sensations in Western society because we're always taught go, 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 be, do, do, do. And that doesn't work. If it worked, we wouldn't collectively have this experience of just this deep roiling dissatisfaction that's at the heart of Western society. Which goes all the way back to that Henry Ford quote about, like, oh, here's the 5-day work week, right? Because hey, if people have 5 days of work and then they have 2 days off and they're spending those 2 days consuming and doing other things, they're not going to have as much time to focus on the disconnect or the discontent that they feel in their lives. They're not going to realize that, in fact, they've just been sold a really bad bill of goods, right? So, yeah, on the one hand, it was like, okay, people aren't working 6 days a week. If he'd gone back a few hundred years, there were people who were working a lot less than 6 days a week. But then our society became industrial. Our society changed in a number of different ways. And so all of a sudden it was like, oh, we got to work all the time. We got to create. We got to produce. We don't have to. So my recommendation for any and all of you is rest. This is a busy time of the year, the holiday season, right? Rest and regenerate. Invite in the dark. Spend some time just being still if you can. There are mysteries to be discovered and things to find joy in when we allow ourselves to let the dark in. Welcome, hero. There are lots and lots of wonderful things to discover when we allow the dark in and we rest. We don't have to always be doing something. And when we let the dark in, it will nourish us in many ways because it has all the things that we've hidden away waiting for us as gifts. And so that's my gift to you for this Yule season. I thank all of you for coming on here for however long you were here. And I wish all of you well. And this will be go up here in a little bit if you missed it. And take care.